We're now going to be taking a little bit of a break from shared preferences and looking at how we can add a menu to our Android apps in the top right, which is the kind of standard location for a menu on Android. We're going to be using this in our Notes app that we're making in a couple of videos' time. So let's create a new project to see how to customize the menu. This is something that's changed actually in the most recent version of Android Studio. It used to be that you were given a menu by default in each app and you had to remove it if you didn't want it, whereas now the default is not to have a menu and you have to add it in if you want it. So we'll start with an app that doesn't have a menu and we'll create the code to add and customize the menu. And here we go. So for a menu in Android, we need to add one new file and we need to customize the main activity.java file as well. So the new file is a XML layout file, which just gives the layout of our menu. And it's usual to create a new folder. So control click or right click on res for resources. And we're going to create a new directory, which I'll call menu, and then we click file, new, and menu resource file, and I'll call this main menu. Click OK, and then you can see we've got this main menu.xml file. So I'm going to use the text view to add my menu. And all we need to do is to create a couple of items. So we'll start off with a settings menu, which will also need an ID. So I'll call it settings. And similarly, we'll just create a second one. Copied from the first, called help. There we go. So you can see our menu. Obviously we can customize this in the same way we would anything, either in the design view or the text view, but I'll leave it as the default layout for now. Now back in main activity, we've got a few settings that we need to add before this will actually work. And the first is to customize the on create options menu, which will be run when the options menu is created. And what we mainly want to do here is link the options menu with our XML file that we've just created. And we do that using something called a menu inflator, which I'll call menu inflator. And this will be equal to get menu inflator. And then we'll take our menu inflator and we'll inflate our menu. Then we want to access our menu. So we use resources.menu.main menu. And we want to link that to this menu here, which is the options menu, i.e. the one in the top right. There we go. So now the menu will appear, which is great. I'll just run it so it'll be quicker to see it later on. But at the moment, none of the options will actually do anything. So the final thing we need to add is on options item selected. And then here, we'll run super.onOptionsItemSelected. And then we're going to check for which item was selected. And we're going to do that using a switch, which we've seen once or twice before. It's a bit like a big if-else statement. So we're switching on the ID of the item that was selected, which is item.getItemID. And the first option, quite literally, is settings. So if the item ID is r.id.settings, then for now we'll just log menu item selected and settings. Another option is that it's r.id.help. So in that case, let's copy and paste menu item selected and help. And then with a switch, you always need a default, and that's going to be return false. It doesn't really need to be return false, but in case we do anything involving the menu from elsewhere in the app, it can be useful to know whether a successful selection was made or not. So these returns don't particularly matter, but they kind of make sense. So we're returning true if the user selected something and false if they didn't. All right, so now we've got our menu running, and here it is. So there's our menu. We can tap on it and select settings, for example, and then if we look in the logs with any luck, we should see that settings. There we go, menu item selected and settings. And similarly, if we select help, then that will be shown there as well. So of course, just logging that the user has pressed an item in the menu is not particularly useful. What we'd probably do there would be to display a new activity where the user could either look for some help or change some settings, or it might bring up a pop-up or alert dialog, which is what we're going to learn how to do in the next video. See you there.